Have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot! Artest looking, gets it Bryant. Bryant turns, has to put it up for the buzzer. Banks it! Oh! He banks it!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. Of course, we are here live streaming to you from the DSM platform. That is DSM Media. That is who this show is presented by. You can find DSM Media on Twitter at DSM_media. You can find myself, the host of Scotty Talks NBA, at Scotty Drown on Twitter and also on Instagram as well. And of course, I am accompanied here by a very special guest. You guys may have seen him if you've watched my shows before, the very well-known Vance Crew. You can find Vance on Twitter at crew_love0. Vance, my man, what is up with you tonight?
Scotty, not much, bro. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you having me back.
Of course. You know, I love to get you on here as much as possible. I know we've gotten to do a little bit of Eagles work recently, so definitely wanted to get you back on DSM and talk some Sixers. And, of course, we'll go through a few things around the NBA. But I won't waste too much time with intros tonight. Let's dig right into this. We've had a long road stretch for these Sixers, and they were able to come away with their second win on this six-game road trip. They finish out with another road game against the Warriors, which I believe is actually tomorrow night at another one of those late games, man. I'm over them. I'm not gonna lie to you, Vance. I know you might be a night owl from your work, right? You work late.
Yeah, man. I work 2 days overnight, so I'm used to.
So you're used to it, man. So that might be a benefit for you. But no, those late games, I was finding myself falling asleep in the fourth quarter there last night. But Vance, I honestly wanted to get and excuse my dog barking in the background there. I wanted to get your takeaways first from this Kings-Sixers matchup from last night. The Sixers were able to come away with the dub, as I mentioned, 102-94 over the Sacramento Kings last night. First game for the Sacramento Kings after firing their coach, Luke Walton. They were coached by Alvin Gentry, so they start off the Alvin Gentry era 0-1. Any takeaways, any major takeaways from the game specifically last night? Any bright spots that you were looking at?
Yeah, man. I think last night was a gut check game. That was a game that they had to win. You know, coming into this 6-game stretch, you know, I was hoping that they came out of this 3-3, which is probably not going to happen now after playing Golden State tomorrow. Yeah. I think, you know, losing against the Pacers was a game that I think if they looked at it, they'd like to have it back. But, you know, last night you go into Sacramento, you go in without Tobias Harris, you go in without, you know, Seth Curry. You know, you're missing Joel Embiid, and you go in there, you're down, 7 points, I believe, or something like that, beginning of the fourth quarter, and you come in and pull that game out. That's huge. That was a game that they absolutely had to have in order for them to come out of this road trip, at least with something respectable.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, and I'm with you as far as them coming out. You know, I guess I probably made my prediction on this road trip a little late, so after that Pacers game, because I think the Pacers was the first game of the road trip.
It was.
So I came in after that loss to the Pacers on the road there. And, you know, I said, hey, I would love to just get 2 wins on this road trip. And it was already after that game. So if I would have came in before that game, that would have been one of the games that I wanted. The other game that I was looking at, I didn't expect this to beat Denver, if I'm being honest with you. I thought we would beat Portland. You know, I thought Portland and Sacramento would be those games that we would need. They had a good chance against Portland. Dame just had one of those nights. It was probably his best game of the season so far, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, I agree with you. I thought it was a gutsy win. They were able to pull it out on a night where not everybody was really there was really nobody that was like super hot last night. I know Tyrese Maxey had a great game. He went 8 for 22 from the field, which probably the worst field goal percentage during this stretch for him. And I'm not complaining about it either. But I'm just looking around the scoreboard. Thibault had a great night, 6 for 8 from the field. He had a season high 15 points. Shake looked really good at times last night. Shake is like he's such an annoying player, man. He's such an annoying player because he'll do something that, like the behind the back move into the mid-range jump shot fadeaway. It looks so crisp, so smooth, and it just shows you the type of potential he has. But then he'll come out and he'll do some stupid pass that you're just like, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? And it's so frustrating with a player like Shake. What are your thoughts on Shake Milton so far this season?
I've always liked Shake. I just think with Shake, man, like Shake is not a point. He's not a point guard, right?
Yeah.
So when he's in that position and he's handling the ball too much, that's when you see him struggle. I look at Shake as like a hired gun. You bring him off the bench and you tell him to shoot. Some nights he's going to have it, some nights he's not going to have it. But in my opinion, Shake is not. He's not a point guard.
Yeah,
he's just not. And I think at times, in the past they've depended on him to be that solid number 2, and that's just not what he is. He's a scorer. He's a scorer and he's a combo guard. And to be honest, he's best played, in my opinion, when you have a fully healthy roster in limited minutes.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think those are the situations where he catches himself trying to do too much. And that's in those, multitude of minutes where he probably shouldn't be playing that much in the first place. Just like a caveat question off of the Shake Milton conversation there. As we move forward with the Sixers, as they get more healthy, when you're looking at Shake, you're looking at Korkmaz, who I feel like one of these guys has to be removed from the rotation, at least to a minimal minute role. Or would you play it just by who's hot on each night? Do you give them each a run and then see who's hot? Or I guess what I'm asking here is, who would you go with in the rotation if you don't play it like that, if you had to pick one?
Right. So I think it's the regular season and you ride the hot hand. But if you put a gun to my head and you ask me to choose one, I would play Korkmaz, and I'll tell you why. Korkmaz is, he's not a great defender, but he's a willing defender. And, I think that's something that you need, especially in this perimeter-driven NBA. He's gotten much better defensively.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately the reason why you would play him over a guy like Shake. But again, it's the regular season. You kind of ride the hot hand. But I think as you get later in the season, you play the guy that's the best defender. And, Shake is not much – he's not a much better shooter than Korkmaz. Korkmaz I would consider streaky. They're both somewhat streaky, but, I give Korkmaz the slight edge there.
Yeah, no, I think I would go to agree with you. The thing with Korkmaz used to be shot selection, and I'm not too bothered by his shot selection to start off this year. Sometimes he gets a little 3 happy, but when you shoot at a clip that he's capable of, you're going to have nights like that where he's not shooting very well and he's shooting a lot of threes. I mean, that's what you're asking him to come off the bench and do. So it doesn't bother me when he has rough shooting nights. You just want to see him shoot good consistently. The other thing I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of riding off this stretch on the road here, Charles Bassey. So he had this enormous game on last Thursday against Denver. That was like his coming out party. Right. And mind you, there's been people, in around the Sixers community, whether it's on Twitter, wherever you get your Sixers info from, that have been very high on Charles Bassey. There was a contract dispute to start the season. He wanted guaranteed years, and they were kind of going at it, and eventually they got things worked out. It's looking like there's a reason why this guy was so confident in himself, wanted some guaranteed money and some guaranteed years here. What are your thoughts on Charles Bassey, and does he have a place in the rotation when you get a guy like Joel Embiid back in the rotation?
Again, it's the regular season. You're going to use him where you need him. But going back to when they drafted Bassey, I was high on him. I watched some of his tape prior to the draft, and I said when they drafted him that I thought this was a guy that can play in the NBA and play right away because of his skill set.
What did you? Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. So you had a little bit of familiarity with Charles Bassey coming into that pick. Mm-hmm. What is his skill set coming out of college and into the next level?
Well, in the NBA today, Scotty, it's your big men are not necessarily your scorers or anything like that anymore. You don't play for them. they're more so rim runners, guys that you can throw the ball to, on lobs and, guys that can block shots. And that's what Bassey can do. And on top of that, he also has the ability to step out, and hit the outside shot as well. So,
Yeah.
When I saw that skill set, I thought this is a guy that can come in and be that rim running, almost like not exactly like Daniel Gafford, but also kind of like in that mold a little bit. Be that rim running big that can block some shots, catch some alley-oops, and be that third body, because when we got to the playoffs last year and we played the the Hawks.
Yeah, I got you.
When we played the Hawks, we really missed Tony Bradley.
Yeah.
We were having that third body in that series with
the
foul trouble that he was in. So, I think he adds value in being that guy this year that, now you see that if Joel gets hurt, you have someone that you can plug in and play. And you also have someone in the playoffs that that's that third body that you can use for fouls, in the playoffs. So I think he could be a valuable piece, going down the line.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. And I guess the piggyback question on that, do you think that there's going to be nights where you play Bassey over, per se, Andre Drummond, for instance?
Yeah, well, you kind of saw it. The one thing that the Sixers are lacking, without Joel Embiid, as good as Drummond is at rebounding the basketball, they do not protect the interior at all. I mean, teams have just gone right down the paint on them without fear. And that's where I think a guy like Bassey, I don't know that he's going to play more than Drummond, but I think depending on the matchup, Doc might be wiser to play Bassey against some teams than Drummond.
Yeah, and I thought, you bring up Doc there, and I thought that was another vote of confidence towards Charles Bassey is him getting thrown out there. Obviously, we've heard like the hype around Paul Reed, and it feels like Charles Bassey is coming in and basically taking his minutes. Now, I know they both played. I think they both played last night for the first time together. But, does it feel like Paul Reed – I'd hate to use the term like done, but like, is he kind of falling into that back burner role now, where he's going to be looking anywhere and everywhere for minutes or maybe even down to the blue coats? Do you think there's a possibility at all?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that they don't necessarily play the same position. I look at Paul Reed more as a forward, a four than a five, just because of the way that he's built. But I do think that there's more value in playing a guy like Bassey. I think he gives you more potential on the defensive end than a guy like, Paul Reed does. So that ultimately is why I think, Bassey would get the nod over a guy like Paul Reed.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've seen so far is, somebody in Bassey where he just looks a lot more disciplined on the defensive end as well, where that's where Paul Reed can be a good defender. He's just not very disciplined when it comes to staying on the ground. He jumps in the air a lot, gets into foul trouble very often. So that's where I can see Bassey not necessarily stealing minutes, just because Niang is more of that stretch forward role. Right. As we get Tobias back, get all these guys back, you're going to start seeing guys in their true positions. But Charles Bassey, he's a great discovery in this whole 6-game road trip because, if Embiid's on this road trip, maybe we don't find that out about Bassey and see what he's made of. So I'm definitely happy with that. One final thing I wanted to get to before we get into the Warriors versus Sixers preview here. Tyrese Maxey, what are your thoughts on Tyrese Maxey so far this season, and then continue to into this 6-game stretch where he's kind of been able to run the show? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I knew he was a great talent coming out of Kentucky, Scotty, but I didn't think that he would catch on quite as fast as he has. I mean, the kid has no fear, and if you've watched him, you can tell that he works hard, and you can tell the things that he works on in the off season actually carry over to an NBA game, and that all comes down to confidence. Your willingness to actually go out there and trust your work. Trust the work that you've done in the off season. And this kid, he's not lacking for confidence. He's a special talent. Some people might look at him and say, "Oh, he doesn't turn the ball over because he doesn't." Attempt, certain kind of passes, or he's not a real point guard. That really doesn't matter. I mean, he's productive. You know what I mean? He's a combo guard. That's what he is. And the Sixers don't need him to be this, phenomenal distributor. They just need him to do what it is that he does. I think he's a special talent. I think sky's the limit for him. And I think that we're just seeing the beginning. I think this is the kind of kid that, as he continues and as he has more success, he's going to continue to blossom and become a great player in this league.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think it was on one of your Twitter posts where I was, getting into it with some fellow Sixers fans. And somebody mentioned like the wow passes. Like Tyrese
Right.
Maxey wouldn't be able to make the wow passes. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, in an offense where all five guys can be held, held accountable, I guess you could say, on the offensive end. And it is what it is with Ben Simmons. I know everybody thinks it's like taking shots at Ben Simmons. At this point, I'm not taking shots at Ben Simmons anymore. I'm taking shots at Ben Simmons' fit with this roster.
Right.
And as you can see, Tyrese Maxey's fit with this starting unit looks a lot cleaner, a lot better so far, even with the injuries and the health issues that this team's faced so far. And I'm looking at what Maxey's doing, and I look at Ben Simmons. I'm like, can he do these things? I don't think that he can. You talk about the efficiency alone. As far as shooting from the floor specifically, 51% from the field goal, and 39.3% from three. You're not getting that out of Ben Simmons, and we don't even need to talk about the free throw line. But when I look at Tyrese Maxey, everybody talks about the wow passes. When you have five guys on offense that can all hit shots, can all take shots, everybody on the defense has to be accountable when guarding these guys. All you have to do is make the simple pass. You move the ball around the perimeter, and somebody's going to get open because everybody's a threat on offense. When you throw in Maxey, who can drive the lane at any time, he can penetrate the lane at any time. He can blow by most perimeter defenders, which it was lovely watching him and De'Aaron Fox go at it last night. And then you even got to see a little bit of Davion Mitchell on Tyrese Maxey as well, which Davion Mitchell is a hell of a defender as a rookie. Tyrese Maxey was having his way out there. And, I just look at this, as far as like the wow and the facilitating. Tyrese Maxey is averaging close to 5 assists a game, 4.6 assists per game. The biggest thing is he's not turning the ball over. And that's all you can ask from a second-year point guard. I don't understand what people aren't seeing. This isn't like some constant diss game to Ben Simmons. It's more or less just celebrating what Tyrese Maxey is doing right now. Like it's incredible the improvements that he's made from year one to year two. But I just wanted to get, because I know you talked about it a lot on Twitter about that fit. How does that Maxey fit change everything for this offense in general? And then when you look at it from that perspective, even further into the playoffs for you, how does that change the Sixers' offensive approach?
Yeah, I think it changes it a great deal. I mean, if you look at how teams have defended the Sixers in the past, we all know that playoff basketball and regular season basketball are two different games. And, when you have a lead guard, like Maxey, that's willing to, put pressure on the defense, he's relentless at getting downhill, getting to the basket. He has no fear, after getting down here and getting downhill and getting to the basket, stepping back and shooting that 15 and 20-foot jump shot. I mean, it makes a world of a difference because now all of a sudden when you have, four of the guys that are out on the court that are willing to shoot, it's going to give Joel Embiid a lot more space. And it's ultimately the reason why Joel Embiid has become a much better passer this year too, because everybody else out on the court is willing to take that shot. Yep. Whereas before, you have it really makes a difference when you change that one position and you put that one other player in there that's willing to do something that the other guard was not willing to do. It makes a huge difference. And, to answer your question about the playoffs, one thing that we shouldn't lose sight of is that this Sixers team is not complete. Ben Simmons is still on this roster, so what I would like to see the Sixers do is add another guard with the same somewhat skill set, of a Tyrese Maxey. You look around the league, that's just the way the game is being played now. You have teams that have multiple guards, that can get their own shot. And I think that's the next step for this team. But, if you look at what they had when they were all healthy, they were playing just fine. And you think about it, if they're able to add pieces by moving to Ben Simmons and they're able to get, another guard that can control the game and is also willing to shoot, I think it's going to make a huge difference moving forward. And I think this team, you can look at their record. They're 10-8, but I look at this team and I think that they're way better prepared, even as a 5 seed, to go into the playoffs this year and do some major damage, as opposed to being a 1 seed last year and being limited in the half-court offense.
Yeah, and something that you hit on there was just the fact that this team isn't yet complete. Let alone complete is in health-wise, right? Like we've seen their starting lineup, their fully healthy roster, obviously without Ben just a few times this season, and they showed to be the best offensive unit in the NBA. When I'm looking at this team right now, and you mentioned that it's incomplete and they still could move Ben Simmons, it just shows you how little of return that you actually need. Now, obviously, the Sixers shouldn't just take pennies to the dollar. They should try to get as much as they possibly can. But I think of these deals that we were hearing in previous months. So Malcolm Brogdon would propel this team to an instant top 3 contender in my eyes, fully healthy. If you're just talking like a Ben Simmons for Malcolm Brogdon straight up trade, I think he would propel them to that level. I saw a trade rumor, 3-team trade with Jaylen Brown, Cat to Boston, something like that, and then Jaylen Brown to the Sixers, Ben to Minnesota. That makes them an instant title contender, top 3 in my eyes, as far as the entire NBA. And it's just as simple as that. I can even go down to a guy at the level of Jalen Brunson, right, from Dallas. Add him to this team, right? I'm not saying that I would trade Ben Simmons straight up for Jalen Brunson. I'm not saying that, obviously. I think Ben Simmons is a better player overall. But add Jalen Brunson, this pure point guard who can run an offense, get his own shot, get to the rim, add him to a second unit, and what does this team look like when he's running that second unit? And then the final part for me in the whole situation is once they do come back and you do have Joel Embiid, you have Tobias Harris, even Seth Curry, Danny Green, these guys have been handling the ball so often in the early part of this season, the Korkmazes, the Shakes of the world, even Tobias Harris, Seth Curry getting the ball in their hands more, even Joel Embiid having the ball in his hands more as a playmaker, that just builds them even further for the playoffs. Because what we saw last year in the playoffs was a team that didn't know what to do whenever their point guard disappears, right? Like that's what I saw with this team. Like Tobias Harris, yes, he looks like a deer in headlights because he was having ball handling and playmaking duties that he quite honestly didn't have the entire season when Ben Simmons was playing like a normal basketball player.
Right.
So that's like the differences that I'm looking at, with this team coming together. You have these guys getting confidence, and I think it's going to bode well for the future, especially the playoffs. But Jason checking in here in the comments. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate all the love. He's loving Maxey over here, and I definitely.
What's up, Jason?
But man, it's exciting when you look at this team. I know everybody will focus on the 10-8 record, but when they get these guys back and get healthy, the sky is the limit for this team. Honestly, I'm talking about top 3 title contenders with a Ben Simmons trade. They very well may be top 3 anyways, and we just don't even know it yet. So I'm excited. One other thing, I guess, before we move on to Warriors and Sixers, and I guess it'll kind of transition into it actually. Mm-hmm. So. Matisse Thybulle, I mentioned he had a season high last night, 15 from the field, 6 of 8 field goal shot attempts. It makes some shot attempts. I'm getting all scrambled in my words there. Matisse Thybulle, what more can he do? Is he doing enough? Obviously, he just came back from COVID, but that was a beautiful night from him being aggressive, attacking the lane, diving to the basket. I think he hit a 3 as well. What else would you like to see from Matisse Thybulle going forward in order to get him some more minutes? And then a second part of that question is, in a Ben Simmons deal, are you willing to move Matisse Thybulle in that deal? Is he untouchable for you? And then I can even extend that to Tyrese Maxey at this point as well.
Yeah, so currently with this roster, I don't think I'm moving anybody, other than Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
From a Sixers perspective on the court, it doesn't really make sense to move Matisse. I mean, Ben is still your best defender. And Matisse is, if Ben's 1A, Matisse is 1B.
Yeah.
You don't trade a guy, like Matisse, because Matisse is going to pay huge dividends in the playoffs. On the half-court set, he's able to wreak havoc in a half-court set. You need players, with that length and that kind of, athletic ability, on the defensive end. Ultimately with Matisse, man, as much as I like him, I just wish that his shot would have developed more, by now, headed into year 3.
Yeah.
At this point, I look at him and I see what he can be. If he's ever, a 37%, 3-point shooter, even if he shoots it 4 times a game from three, with his defensive ability, if he scored 10 points and shot 37% from three off of 4 shots,
It's that simple.
he'd be exactly what this team needed him to be. But, because he's limited offensively, I think it really hurts his ceiling, and it ultimately it kind of hurts the team too, because I feel like he could be a special player, but you just can't trust him enough offensively to make shots, to keep him out there 30 plus minutes a game.
And it would be one thing if he, could handle the ball as well and get to the rim. Obviously he's got a pretty good athletic ability. He gets above the rim quite often, but he just doesn't have like the coordination or I shouldn't even say the coordination. He just doesn't look like an offensive minded player. He doesn't have like a feel for the offensive side of the game. And it looks almost like a lot of his offensive participation is kind of forced or awkward at times. I just wish it looked a little bit more fluid, which at times, he has at times, with his jump shot and shooting from the 3-point line. But I guess what I'm asking you with Matisse, and when you're looking at if you would have to trade him or not with Ben Simmons, I guess what I'm asking is if it was the difference between getting Jaylen Brown in return versus like a CJ McCollum in return, would you be willing to throw Matisse in that deal? And even, it's kind of stemming back to the question of, would you send the farm for Damian Lillard at this point? Would you include a maxi with Ben in order to get Lillard? Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. So let's dive back to Matisse. If that's the difference between you getting Jaylen Brown, who is more of a two-way player than, CJ McCollum, ultimately would be a better fit in my opinion as well. If that's the difference between you getting that level of player or that level of player, would you be willing to let Matisse go?
No, and here's why. I still think you lose. You lose defensively. If you're giving away 2 potentially top 10 or top 5 wing defenders in the NBA to get a guy that can score and that's a decent defender, I don't really know. Trading Ben Simmons for Jaylen Brown, that makes you better. I don't think trading Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle for Jaylen Brown makes you better. I still think that, you don't have to be as great as the Sixers were defensively last year, right? Like, you don't have to be the number one team defensively, but you still have to have, guys on that side of the court that can get a stop. And if you trade both of them, I think you lose that, significantly. You lose that ability, at the end of games to put a guy out on the court that that you've seen time and time again can get a stop. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. Like, Jaylen Brown is a great player. He's a better player than Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle. But I think what it comes down to is when you're talking about a team and what's important to a team, you have to remember that getting stops on defense it's important. And if you lose Ben Simmons, you really can't afford to move Matisse Thybulle after that.
Yeah, and I actually really love the way you put that in. It kind of rephrased everything in my mind because, I saw the post earlier, regarding the mock trade or whatever, and my immediate thought was like, am I being emotional because I just like Matisse Thybulle? I really enjoy him as a person. He's a very entertaining individual. Obviously, he's a defensive mastermind, like on a different level. We talk about great defenders, but I saw him last night. Like, somebody just tried to do a simple pass, and he just jumps completely up in midair and like intercepts the ball. And it's just an incredible instinctual ability that he has on defense. And, my thinking was that if you add Jaylen Brown, we already don't have Ben Simmons. So I was thinking of it in that sense. But in reality, you are losing. You already have lost one defender. You would be losing an extra defender now. Right. And when you look at the Ben Simmons situation, we shouldn't have to trade away some of these young pieces in order to make up for his sunken costs or his sunken value. And I think that's where we can't get misled in this whole situation, is that a player you might be able to just get for Ben Simmons, even though they're not as good as Jaylen Brown, may be better than Jaylen Brown if they're paired with Matisse Thybulle in that sense. You know what I mean?
Right. I think where you are, where the Sixers are right now, Scotty, they have a really good core. I think you want to, outside of Ben Simmons, you really don't want to move on any of that. You want to keep that and, find a way to add to it. Just to play devil's advocate against myself, though, I will say one of the easiest things to find in the NBA is a wing defender. I mean, it is one of the easier things to find. So, I wouldn't move Matisse, but that's not to say that Daryl Morey wouldn't, because he has a propensity of being able – I mean, if you look at Daryl Morey's history, he has the ability to go out and find guys sometimes that you've never heard of that are 3-and-D players. You know what I mean? So, to me, I would say no, but I'm not Daryl Morey. I'm sure he's going to do whatever he thinks is best, to make this roster better and to make it a true championship contender. And I'm not going to argue with him if he moves Matisse, because I know that there will be another move coming.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that thought either. One last thing on the Ben Simmons situation. There's been another rumor that has kind of arisen over the last few days, and it's regarding the Sixers basically waiting, I guess, until the offseason to pursue James Harden once again, to get him out of Brooklyn. Apparently there's, him not signing an extension, all of that noise behind the scenes there. What are your thoughts on a deal pertaining to James Harden at this point, even if you had to wait until after the season concluded?
So I think it would be a good deal for both teams. I think it potentially could be a great deal for Brooklyn. The only reason I say that is because if you're able to pair a 6'10" Ben Simmons with his ability with a 6'10", Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, it's very similar to Golden State. He'll be allowed to do the things that he does well, and he's not necessarily going to have to shoot, to be successful. But if you're telling me that if you're Brooklyn and you're taking on Ben Simmons with everything that's going on with Kyrie right now, I don't know if Ben Simmons, for this season. I'm not sure if that makes the Nets any better.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of having James Harden on the Sixers. I do wonder about James Harden, though. He hasn't had a typical James Harden year. So are we starting to see that slide that you see with guys, as they start to get a little bit older? You're talking about a guy whose game is not built on athleticism.
Yeah.
It's built on skill. So, I haven't seen him play a whole lot this year, but I'm just looking at his numbers and wondering, what's going on there? Is he injured? Is there something going on? But when guys like that start to lose a step, it makes you wonder, how much time does he have left?
And even the fact that, Brooklyn, if they were willing to move him, you know what I mean? It's similar to the Sixers. It's like the Sixers at this point just have to take the best possible return for Ben Simmons individually that they can get, which James Harden would be like, a Nobel Peace Prize for the Sixers in that sense. But from the Nets side of things, it's like, you've sunken down so far that you have to trade James Harden for a guy that won't come to practice, a guy that, another, I hate to call it a head case, but I mean, similar to Kyrie, that's what we're looking at right now. I tend to agree with you in that sense. Moving on to Warriors versus Sixers. Tomorrow night, they go at it. I mentioned at the late 10 p.m. West Coast game. Any thoughts going into this game? Obviously, the Sixers are going to be undermanned against what is the best team. I guess that's a good question to ask you. Are the Warriors the best team in the NBA right now, in your opinion?
I think so, man. They look very much like they did before they got KD. You remember them before they got Kevin Durant. They had a bunch of, wing players, surrounding Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. That team, one thing I'll say about them, Scotty, is they have great leadership from top to bottom. You look at their guys, you look at Iguodala, you look at Draymond Green, you look at Steph Curry, you even look at Klay Thompson on the bench, putting young guys around them, that's the best possible scenario for you to come into the NBA as a young player and to be on that bench and learn from those guys. Like if you look at what they've done for guys like Jordan Poole and Damian Lee and, giving them the confidence to go out there and do what it is that they do. I mean, that's just it's a special group, man. It's one of the more special groups that we've seen in the NBA since the Bulls, the Bulls and Lakers dynasty.
Yeah, no, I thought that was very well said once again. And, my man Chile, getting Iggy back is super underrated for them. Yeah, I tend to agree. And that's what I thought as soon as you said that, because I'm thinking of these young guys like Jonathan Kuminga, who is almost similar to Iggy in a sense of being just overly athletic, very young, very raw coming into the league. And who better to kind of guide you and show you the ropes towards being a great defender first, because that's what they're going to ask from a lot of these young guys, or all of these young guys, is come in, and the first thing you're going to have to do is play defense. And then the next thing you're going to have to do is be smart on offense and not take, shots away from guys like Steph. So, just having Iggy back in that rotation. And then, like I mentioned, with Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and then you have James Wiseman coming back as well.
Forgot all about Wiseman.
These are guys that, you can throw them. It's like throwing paint to a wall and seeing what sticks to the wall. Like, you don't necessarily need them to pan out this season in order to be a great team. Anything they can provide is just extra. And you're talking about, 3 top 15 picks right there that we're speaking on now. And it's kind of amazing what the Warriors have been able to do. I guess what I'm looking at for tomorrow night's game, obviously, if they can make it a close one, great. That would be awesome. But I am paying attention to just this Steph versus Maxey matchup. I want to see how that plays out, or if they go the route of having Matisse stick with Steph Curry the entire game. Right. I'm interested to see if they'll do that. What are you thinking?
I think keep that bus warm. Make sure that the bus doesn't turn off, and get out of there healthy, because they ain't got no chance tomorrow night.
I love it though. I love that though. I tend to agree with you because I said it on Twitter earlier. It's like going into this Golden State game, they're 15-2, and do I think that their third loss is going to come to the Sixers without Embiid? I don't know about that. And we don't even know if Tobias is playing yet, right? Like, we don't know who the hell is playing. So I would honestly, like you said, I would let Tobias probably rest. Even tomorrow, I'd let Seth rest. I'd let Danny Green rest. Let's get back to Philly, get Joel Embiid back. And then if those guys need more time, once we get Embiid back, then that will make a lot more sense as well.
Exactly.
But he agrees with you as well. Mentioned Gary Payton II has looked so good off the bench. Yeah,
really good. He's playing really good.
He's another guy. Freak athlete, plays defense. It's like a formula that they got for him in there. But and we got them back in Philly on the 11th. That's the game we was talking about before we hopped on here, Vance. So very quickly, I want to move on from the Sixers. We do have a little bit to get into here before we end the show. It is going to be a quick episode tonight, guys. There's not a ton going on in the NBA, but I will surely have Vance back on here later on in the season. I want to talk a little bit about the Lakers and Russell Westbrook, to be very specific. It's been a very rocky beginning to this fit, or the chemistry on this team. I really just want to get your thoughts on the fit of Russell Westbrook. What do the Lakers need to do with Russell Westbrook, and what does Russell Westbrook need to do with his ego in order to suffice to what the Lakers need from him?
So in my opinion, Scotty, there's 3 ways that this can work. Number one is they move Russell Westbrook to the bench. They allow him to come off and be himself on that second unit, because he clearly doesn't fit, what that first unit needs. The second thing is, second option is Russell Westbrook stays in that lineup, but he becomes a glorified version of Ron Harper. If you remember, Ron Harper, when he was with the Cavs before he got injured, he was a legit, 24, 25 point a game player, great defender. And when he got to Chicago, he could have still played on another NBA team and put up those same kind of numbers. But when he got to Chicago, his role changed completely. He was a team first defensive guy, facilitator, did all the little things. And if Westbrook is going to stay in the starting lineup, I mean, that's what they're going to need him to be. He's not going to be the prototypical Westbrook that he was in OKC and other places that he's been. They need him to be a different player in order to complement the rest of that lineup. And the third thing is, the other option is if it's not working, they'll have to trade him. Unfortunately, I don't know any teams that are going to want that contract, but to me, the best possible thing is they can do is, either bring him off the bench, allow him to be himself, or he's going to have to change his game completely, to fit that starting lineup.
Yeah, because, I know you mentioned 3 options there. I'm not sure how realistic the third option is, as far as seeing his fit with a team based around LeBron and AD. Now, obviously, LeBron's missed some major time this season, but when you can't make it work beside LeBron, which ultimately, if they cross that road that they're going to trade Russell Westbrook, at that point that it did not work out. What does that say about you? You know what I mean? To your point, I do think, as far as the first two options, I think they're both options that could work. But as you mentioned, that all falls in, can Russell Westbrook's ego handle that?
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to sit up here and say whether or not he can or can't. But, it would be interesting to see if he could, similar to a way that, Carmelo Anthony has been able to do, especially, since moving on to Portland and then so on and so forth. He's found his way as a role player in this league.
Right.
And that's something similar that I think Russell Westbrook is going to go through with his career here. He's just got to be willing to take that. It's not even a sacrifice because it's going to be better for him as a player. It's going to make him look better. It's going to make him look like the team guy, which he's not been known as throughout his career. So that's definitely something I'm looking at. Before we move on from the Lakers, I do want to just get to the Jumbled Eastern Conference, and then we will wrap up here. Nice 45-minute show. The LeBron and Stewart incident, what were your thoughts on that? Do you think that the punishments were fair, appropriate? Any takeaways?
So Stewart was suspended for 2 games, was it?
2 games, and LeBron was 1.
LeBron was 1. So here's the thing, man. Like, I just think LeBron gets away with stuff like this every year. I mean, like I said the other day, last year he pushed Joel Embiid in midair, which I think it ended up knocking him out for a period of time.
Yeah.
And he didn't get suspended at all.
Yeah.
And then he does this, and explain to me how he hits him in the eye, and he gets 1 game, and Stewart gets 2 games. That's the part that I don't understand. Like, that was in my opinion, that was a flagrant foul. And LeBron should have been suspended for more than a game, for that. So it's just the league. Like, I know it's LeBron's league, but to me, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you have to hold him accountable for doing things like that.
Yeah, and my thing is, regardless of intent, it's an optic thing as well. You have Isaiah Stewart out here. He's upset. He's bleeding all over the court because of an unnecessary play, right? So that's my biggest thing with it. The last thing I want to get to with you here, and I know your laptop's dying there, Vance, so I am going to sweep through here. I really just want to go through the list of Eastern Conference teams right now because they're very jumbled up in the middle there, and then I will get you out of here, my man. I'm going to start with the Wizards, and I just want you to tell me, are these real teams in the East? Are these teams that are going to be there in the playoffs at the end of the regular season here? And I'm just going to go down the list. So I'll start with the 11-6 Washington Wizards. What are your thoughts?
I think they have a chance to be there. Like, I like the way that they're built. I mean, they play the way the game is played in the NBA today. They have, rim running centers that they don't play through. They just expect them to rebound the ball. And they have wing players that can score the basketball. And shoot it from 3. I'm here.
Okay, gotcha. All right, man. So let's sweep through here. So you do think the Wizards could be the top 8 team, and yes. Obviously they've added Trez and Dinwiddie there, Kyle Kuzma. They have some pieces that they've added there, and it's ultimately a better fit than what they had with Russell Westbrook, in my opinion. Next team, Chicago Bulls. They're 12-6 right now. They beat some pretty quality teams so far this season.
I think the Chicago Bulls are a legit contender, man. I mean, they've got, a guy like DeRozan that gets it done from mid-range.
Yeah.
They've got, a guy like, Levine who can score on all 3 levels. They've got, the complementary players. They have really good role players. Now they have Caruso, coming off the bench, playing well. I think that team, they're going to be there when it's all said and done. I do believe that they're going to be a top 4 team, top 5 team, I would say.
Yes. And I wasn't sold on the Bulls coming into the season just because I didn't know how they would fit. But after seeing them play over the start of this season, the way they play, they have 2 guys in Levine and DeRozan who can get their own shot. And that's what is so important when you get to the playoffs. So they can be serious contenders this year. We can fly through the rest of these teams. Charlotte, 11-8. Are they a playoff team?
I think that's one of those teams that might come back down to earth again. They're a team that has a great talent on the wing. Miles Bridges is playing really well this year. He might be the most improved player, over Tyrese Maxey. But, my issue with them is defensively, I'm not sure, they score a ton of points. Not sure how that defense is going to hold up. Excuse me, later in the season. I think if there was a team to get booted, I think that would be one of the teams that would probably end up outside of the top 8 just because of their defensive alone. Now, they have time to change that. There's always a trade deadline. But if you're asking me right now, I think that's a team that's probably on the outside looking in.
Gotcha. And then the next teams that I go to, Boston and Philly. I'm sure you got Philly in there. Boston, you think they're a playoff team, I'm sure.
Probably they might be. They might be the 8th seed.
They could. I can see them fall that low.
Yeah.
New York Knicks.
New York Knicks, I think, are probably a 6 seed in this Eastern Conference.
So then we got 4 teams all around the same spot right now. Oh, we might have lost Vance. We lost Vance. I know his laptop was about to die. That is all good, though. I tried to get in as much as I could with Vance before we lost him there. But definitely always a pleasure having Vance on Scotty Talks NBA. We will get Vance on here again. Unfortunately, he couldn't find his laptop charger tonight. We wanted to get a quick episode in before Thanksgiving gets started here. Oh no, he just texted me. No, it's all good, Vance. If you're still tuning in there, we are good. I just wanted to get to a few more teams. I can actually finish this up myself. So when I'm looking at the rest of the Eastern Conference, we already mentioned, Vance mentioned he thinks Charlotte will fall out of the picture. I'm with him there. If I'm looking at these teams, I'm looking at Charlotte, I'm looking at Indiana, I'm looking at Toronto. These teams right on the brink of maybe making the playoffs, maybe not. Cleveland, I think they're going to fall. They'll fall a little bit. Obviously, they've been catapulted by great rookie play of Evan Mobley, who is probably leading the way for Rookie of the Year so far. The Atlanta Hawks, they're sitting at 9-9 right now. I see them pushing their way up the playoff rankings in the Eastern Conference. But yeah, I would group Charlotte, Boston, Indiana, Toronto. Cleveland, I'd put right below them. But as far as teams, I think will end up in the playoffs and holding up those 8 seeds in the East. The Eastern Conference is jumbled. It's way tougher than what it's been in recent years. Obviously, some have went as far as to say that it's a better conference than the Western Conference. That's to be determined. There's a ton of talent in the West, so I'm not going to jump to that conclusion just yet over one season. But the Eastern Conference is definitely more competitive than it's ever been. But that is all I got for you guys tonight. As I mentioned before the show, before we got into everything here tonight, going to be a quick show. There is not a ton going on right now. We're so early in the season. The Sixers are all beat up. They're on this miserable road trip. But next week we will be back. Maybe I can get Vance back on. We can finish our convo here. But no, thank you all for tuning in. Before I get everybody out of here tonight, definitely got to let you know, as everyone should know by now, but if you don't, we are getting close to the holidays, and DSM Media and Scotty Talks NBA are brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code Scotty at manscaped.com. That's Scotty spelled SCOTTY. Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. This upgraded trimmer includes a multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And did I mention the wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Scotty at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code Scotty. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will certainly thank you. As always, I thank you to everybody who tuned into the show today. As always, Scotty Talks NBA will be back in its usual time next Monday. We will be live. We will be recapping, hopefully, a nice Sixers dub with Joel Embiid back. Hopefully, Joel Embiid's return. We'll get to showcase it. But, guys, I hope you all have a very special Thanksgiving. We will be back tomorrow, DSM Media, that is. There's a few live shows going on tomorrow, the day before Thanksgiving. We're getting the whole crew together tomorrow evening. We'll give a special shout out to all the viewers and listeners out there that support DSM Media. But with that being said, anybody that just tunes into Scotty Talks NBA, just wanted to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. Enjoy all of the food. If you're on a diet, lose the diet for just a few days. Enjoy the food. Enjoy the holidays with your family. And as always, thank you for tuning in to DSM Media. As you continue to support us, we will continue to bring entertainment. We will continue to bring content. We will continue to engage with all the listeners out there. As always, guys, much love. Happy holidays to everyone out there. That's going to be it for this one. You can find me on Twitter at Scotty Drown. You can find DSM Media at DSM_media. That's going to be it for this episode, guys. Thanks for